Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. So glad you've joined us today to stay curious here in our studios in our wonderful museum in downtown Titusville. We're just 10 miles sitting away from the launch pads at Cape Canaveral and Cape Kennedy. And a person that earned a good living out there is my co-producer, Marty Winkle. Marty's been with me for 5 years. Together, we've been doing this Stay Curious broadcast Monday through Friday for your pleasure to keep up with space events and interviews and conversations with space workers and astronauts. So today we're going to talk about current events in the solar system and universe that are making headlines. And we'd love for all you to chime in and say you're watching today. Marty will, if there's an appropriate comment or question to ask, please forward it to me here. But kind of a newscast show today where I'm going to put my spectacles on and read a lot about what is going on that I thought was fascinating in our solar system and universe. Every day I probably get 5 to 10 emails from different organizations, from NASA to Jet Propulsion Lab to private companies talking about what's going on. And I know many of you don't get those, so you'll be learning and hearing about some things that maybe you have escaped your eyes and your news feeds today. We're going to kind of dig into some of that in a fun, kind of like I said, newsish way there. So I'll put my Walter Cronkite, Dan Rather spectacles on here to read a lot today. And the first up, as I said, breaking news, so many things happening that are current events that change our thinking about things that we thought were facts 10 years ago, for example. That's what science is constantly re-looking, rethinking, reimagining, studying objects. And as instruments of science get better, then the discoveries can be completely changing, such as we've seen with the Hubble telescope for 35 years orbiting the Earth. Changed the whole concept of black holes and how they were created and how many they were. We realized that galaxies are everywhere. Where Earth-based telescopes saw empty sky, the Hubble telescope has found thousands of galaxies, millions of light years away. So that's what science, I said, is all about. I find it interesting, Marty, that, for example, 50 years ago when the moon rocks from the Apollo era were being housed in the Lunar Receiving Lab in Houston, they haven't ripped through them to do all the analysis. A lot of them they set aside for study 50 years from now when there were instruments to be created that they didn't have 50 years ago. Think about MRIs, when x-rays 50 years ago were the only way to see a broken bone, and now MRIs and ultrasounds and things like that have allowed us to really look inside the human body and other things. So there are a couple things today that we thought we knew what we were talking about, that then we find out we're not. So let's kick that off today with Dave Stange said he felt it up there in Michigan, but last night an asteroid about the size of your house made a close approach to Earth, skimming by at just a distance of 72,000 miles. That is 9 Earth diameters away from us. And this object, called asteroid 2025 KF, is that streak right there in the middle, very faint streak there. It's the size of a house. Yet Dennis Simmons, an Australian astrophotographer, caught it from Brisbane, Australia yesterday. 20 meters wide, so a meter is about 3 feet, so 60 feet wide, was speeding across the sky at a rate that challenged amateur tracking systems. And this amateur astronomer Simmons relied on NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab Horizons data rather than his mount's native planetarium software, his telescope mount, which he found was off nearly 6 degrees. And he said JPL was bang on the target. This asteroid, the size of a house, was discovered 2 days ago by astronomers up in Chile's Atacama Desert, where some major telescopes are. It's so dry and right at the edge of above about 4 miles above the atmosphere, above the 3 miles to 4 miles above the Earth's base horizon. So it's not looking through a lot of air. And these, every day, there's over 3,000 near-Earth asteroids that we're keeping track of that could hit the Earth. If this one had hit the Earth, depending on where it hit, but if it hit in Merritt Island, it would take out Titusville with it. Okay, the speed and not so much the size and angle of the impact are big factors. So, though this asteroid did not pose a danger, think about that. It was discovered 2 days ago. And if 2 days ago they said, uh-oh, this ain't grazing the Earth, this is headed right to the Earth, it's going to hit, we think, somewhere, anywhere. Pick a populated area. Now, we know with 70% ocean, there's a good chance that it would hit an ocean area, but think of the tsunami in the coastal regions that would be harmed. If you've been to Meteor Crater, Behringer Crater, it's also called, in northern Arizona near Flagstaff, that was about the size, a little bigger than this one, but not much. So that's the type of impact it could have. One day, an advance warning might save us. Not save us like the movie Armageddon, but still, we like to have the advance warning to try to do something. Asteroid Day we'll be talking about is Monday, June 30th, and it promotes the awareness of not if, but when the next Earth-devastating asteroid will hit the Earth. It will happen, and we're long overdue for it. Something like helped the dinosaurs go extinct 65 million years ago. Well, here's a discovery alert. A possible perpendicular planet. All right, what do I mean by that? Well, this is the image that Marty put for my backdrop here on our green screen there. And what this shows is a planetary system is among the strangest ever found. This planet traces out an orbit that carries it far from the poles of its two brown dwarf stars. Now, brown dwarf stars are, again, mystery objects. They're sort of a star that maybe is just barely hanging on to life, and there's a lot of brown dwarfs in the universe. In fact, they say there's more brown dwarfs than any star out there. In a typical arrangement, like our planet, we orbit around the equator of our star, all right, in a very centrifugal type situation there caused by angular momentum. Very difficult to get this type of angular momentum to go opposite the orbital of a planet or the rotation orbit of a star or other object. Everyone is coplanar, they call it, in the flat plane of the orbiting star, of the rotating star. Not so with this planet. If confirmed, the planet would be in a polar orbit around the two central brown dwarfs. In other words, its orbital plane is the yellow line there, if it is the planet, as the two brown dwarfs orbit each other and kind of loop around. This is a strange configuration in space, and just when you think you understand things, something like this pops up, and physicists are scratching their heads over it. Well, to keep the triple layer going here, let's see here. We've got physics. Well, I'm out of sync here. Let's see, where'd those go? Getting my notes mixed up here, folks, and I don't want to do that. I got that. I've got, there we are. Hubble telescope spots a rare triple system hidden in the Kuiper Belt. Now, the Kuiper Belt is technically where Pluto is the largest object in it. This is like an asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, where there's a big gap, where there could have been a planet, and there's a lot of rubble. And we're going to talk about the asteroid belt here in a few more minutes with another amazing object in it. The Kuiper Belt is more of frozen objects out at the outskirts past Neptune. And astronomers have discovered Adjahara, a rare triple system in the Kuiper Belt using Hubble telescope and the Keck telescope on Hawaii mountain up there, its data. And this reshapes our view of solar system history. The mystery of how planets and icy objects formed in the farthest reaches of our solar system just took an exciting turn. A team of researchers from NASA recently uncovered strong evidence for a rare and complex system of 3 icy space rocks orbiting one another in the Kuiper Belt. This remote region is the leftovers of the early solar system, way past Neptune, where Pluto is, over 4 billion miles away where Pluto is. This extends out to maybe 10 billion miles. The object at the center of this discovery, Altagira. Using advanced analysis and precise imaging from space and Earth, scientists found that Altagira is likely a triple system. It consists of 3 separate bodies, 2 closely orbiting bodies with a third circling them from far away. This rare setup has been found once before in the Kuiper Belt with an object called Limpo, which has 3 similar orbiting mass bodies. That discovery shocked scientists. Until then, only models predicted such a system should exist, yet they now appear more common than once thought. Once you start seeing the second of something, then we realized the first one wasn't as rare as we thought it was. So a triple orbiting system of bodies way out there in the Kuiper Belt, which really has a lot of energy considerations, momentum, stuff like that, of how that could happen in there. Well, this is a weird one for sure. And I'm going to not say I exactly understand this either, but physics has confirmed the incredible existence of time mirrors. For decades, theoretical physicists tossed around the idea that time reflection, also known as time mirrors, might one day be demonstrated in a real-world experiment. This idea seemed too big and wild, yet it kept popping up in serious discussions of quantum mechanics where equations hinted at this surprising behavior. Well, a team of physicists in New York City's Advanced Science Research Center at the New York University there has now confirmed that these mysterious events may actually exist. They pulled off a successful test by changing the properties of a device in a quick, uniform way so that signals reverse direction in time. Think of an echo in a canyon coming back to you. This is what they're talking about. This sort of time flip has been described as looking into a mirror and spotting the back of your head instead of your face. It sounds like science fiction, but it has a basis in real physics. For over 50 years, have predictions for over 50 years that sudden shifts in an energy waves environment could trigger such reversals. Instead of light or sound bouncing back in space, the wave is forced to reverse its flow in time. That shift causes the frequency of the wave to change, sparking a chain reaction of interesting phenomenon in the system. Normal reflections, you see an immediate image or hear an echo. A time reflection, on the other hand, makes part of the signal run backwards. All right. And they say there's no need for speculation about time travel, though, since these effects involve a swift flip in the medium's physical traits. All right. And they're changing the direction of waves of light and energy and so forth. So something to think about, looking in a mirror and seeing the back of your head instead of the front of your face. Another news blurb making the rounds. Jupiter, the largest planet in our solar system, was once twice as big. Even today, Jupiter dominates the other planets in size, and modeling suggests it was once larger still. And we've always thought of Jupiter as a failed star. If it had 10 times more mass, it would have collapsed and energy would have started to emit like our sun or like all stars do. It just wasn't big enough. Yet it is so big that everything in the solar system, I mean everything, every planet, all their moons, all their rings, all the asteroids, all the Kuiper Belt objects, everything can fit inside of Jupiter quite comfortably. And you can go out tonight on a clear night and look to the west where the sun set when it gets dark, and the brightest star you see is the planet Jupiter. Better look quick though, because it's the Earth's movement around the sun is making it disappear, and it'll be gone in a month. What we're looking at here is the shadow of one inner moon of Jupiter called Amalthea, and this has helped them understand maybe that Jupiter could have been a lot larger. And in fact, a professor, a team from California Institute of Technology and the University of Michigan think the key to understanding Jupiter's origins lies in its moons. Not the four big Galilean moons that get the most attention, but primarily the small moons. Amalthea, Thebe, that orbit even closer than Io, which is the moon that has 200 volcanoes going on it, one of the inner moons of Jupiter, about the size of our Earth. Well, these are all a lot smaller, on the order of just hundreds of miles across. And but many of the smaller Jupiter moons are thought to be captured asteroids. But these exist further out. The inner moons are probably original moons. Their orbits are tilted relative to the moon's equatorial plane by quite a few degrees. Those would be quite small angles for more distant moons, but closer moons usually have tilts. So all the calculations and so forth is that Jupiter could have been 2 to 2.5 times its current size. And by studying the movement of these and how they may have been further out, and to that cause the Jupiter was bigger. And of course it means a bigger Jupiter in volume, and also Jupiter already has the strongest magnetic field in the solar system, and it would have been 50 times stronger still at that. So the physics and the science is quite heady and even over my head in many ways, but when they calculate things like this, it's incredible that we can determine how the solar system may have looked billions of years ago. Now, we think the solar system is about 5 billion years old, all right? The oldest rocks on Earth are 4 billion with a B years old, and we think that Mars had a lot of water, for example, 3 billion years ago, but has lost it, in most of its the last 3 billion years. We'll talk about Mars here in a minute, but water is the main ingredient in the solar system for sure, and water is what we try to find, because where there's water, there's always life on Earth, and it depends on the type of water. There's some water that's got different alkalines that doesn't support life, but as we look at exoplanets, planets outside our own solar system that are orbiting other stars are called exoplanets. And we've determined that there's over 5,000 exoplanets just in the closest 100 so stars, all right? We've not even looked far deep into our Milky Way galaxy for other exoplanets. We're looking at the ones closest by, and some major telescopes have been launched just to do that. In fact, one that's being put on hold, the Nancy Roman telescope, that may be on the butcher block from budget cuts by our Congress, is the Roman telescope is to determine atmospheres and water on nearby planets orbiting other stars. So, one of the most famous ones that we discovered, and that is such technology is always coming out on, are shown in artists' imagination here, called TRAPPIST, TRAPPIST, The seven planet systems that goes around a star called TRAPPIST, some 40 light years from Earth, that's in our backyard, could be swimming in water. All right. In 2017, just 8 years ago, scientists announced the discovery of several exoplanets orbiting the red dwarf star TRAPPIST-1, and ever since, astronomers have keenly monitored the system for potential signs of life. And those would be biosignatures. For example, carbon dioxide would indicate outgassing of something happening that gives life. We are human beings. We exhale carbon dioxide. So things like that they're looking for. According to recent findings, these planets may have an abundance of one of the most crucial elements for life, water. Since their discovery, the scientists have gone back and forth on whether this system of planets could be habitable. But with the Webb telescope, combination of telescopes on Earth that kind of tie in to each other, and of course the Hubble telescope, this TRAPPIST exoplanet system of 7 is one of the most studied of all. And why it is because 4 or 5 of them, these planets, are in what we call the Goldilocks zone. It's not too close to the star to be too hot. It's not too far away from their parent star to be too cold. It is in the right place, just right for water to form. That's where we are with Earth in the Goldilocks zone, where we're the only thing we've discovered in our solar system, or yet others, that has liquid water floating on the surface. Now, we have discovered liquid methane on the moon Titan of Saturn, its largest moon, Titan of Saturn, and we plan to send some probes there, even maybe some underwater probes, as when you look at Titan through its hazy atmosphere, with basically the Cassini spacecraft did a great job of doing that while it was orbiting Saturn for 12 years. It's gone now. It looks like the Great Lakes are up in Minnesota with Finger Lake not water, but methane lakes everywhere. So we don't know if something can live in that type of environment. It would be a silicon-based life form, not carbon-based like we are. Anyway, here's 3 of the different stars, what they think they might look like. And they don't see this information yet visually. They infer it from other means, infrared, radio, all kinds of different disciplines being used to determine things. And a big deal how they determine how big planets are orbiting stars is how the planets pull on the star back and forth. Like Jupiter pulls on the sun back and forth, and the pull goes from one side to the other as Jupiter goes from one side of the solar system to the other. So that's just a little background of how we know these things. So the findings are supported by other research that reveal that these planets experience high rates of water loss to space caused by the intense ultraviolet radiation from their host star. So if you're seeing a lot of water vapor, water molecules go off of a exoplanet body, it has to have water on the surface for it to be dissipated out into the cosmos. This could mean that planets orbiting within TRAPPIST-1's habitable zone are volcanically inactive and have varying degrees of water, ranging from potential water worlds and barren rocky worlds to Earth-like planets covered with oceans. So they're thinking now there's no shortage of water on 3 or 4 of these planets in this TRAPPIST system. And while the Webb observations are in its infancy, it is also supporting some of this data. And additional observations will allow astronomers to constrain the potential habitability of this system. And it's 40 light years away, so that means 40 times traveling at the speed of light would take you 40 years, which is 6 trillion miles an hour. So good luck getting there in, I don't know how long that'd take you. I can't figure that out in my head, but probably in the order of 20,000 years, something like that. Again, This is an incredible picture of an overlooked object in our solar system that could really have life on it. This is the asteroid Ceres, Ceres, 800 miles across, the first asteroid discovered. It was thought to be a planet in between Jupiter and Mars. You got Mars, the asteroid belt, Jupiter, and a big gap in there. They kept looking to see what was in there. They found Ceres, and we have sent a spacecraft there that orbited it for over a year and took this amazing photo of some areas that are salty. This is basically a salt lick, so to speak, that has dried up on Ceres in there. You see it's cratered. And we thought, because of the observations by NASA spacecraft, that maybe it had 10% water there. But new research points to a frozen past where the dwarf planet Ceres may have once had muddy ocean water. Okay. And we called it a dwarf planet. That is the class that Pluto has fallen into, because they act like a comet to some regards, that they have so much ice and water on them. And in Pluto's case, it was, we found a bunch of objects bigger than Pluto. Do we create more planets, or do we create a new class that these all seem to be classed in, something that is more ice than rock? And Ceres was classified as this for its large size, as well as some of the icy characteristics it displayed. Well, most believe that Ceres was less than 30% ice and too solid to have held much water. Well, now that idea might be outdated. Fresh findings suggest Ceres could be far more icy than astronauts had guessed. The new research points to a frozen past, one where the dwarf planet may have once been a muddy ocean world. The updated theory casts a doubt on earlier belief of its dry, rocky nature. A team from Purdue and the NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory are behind this breakthrough. Their study, published in Nature magazine, proposed that up to 90% of Ceres's layers could be ice. Instead of solid rock, they believe the crust is dirty ice, formed as a slushy, muddy ocean frozen over time. Oh, wow, think about that. We thought we're looking at rocks here, but maybe we're just looking at a dirty snowball. And that is an amazing change of philosophy, and would also have NASA engineers thinking about, wow, maybe we need to send some probes there instead of the moon Europa orbiting Jupiter that is covered with ice, and we know there's an ocean, water underneath that ice, with more water than all the oceans on the Earth combined. Think about that. So Ceres, a great little discovery of that. I have seen it in a telescope just a few times. Very, very elusive object. Well, something else that's elusive to amateur astronomers right now is, you think everything's so perfect in a messy world is what we're talking about. And looking around the landscape of the universe, there's not many things that are round except planets and stars, all right? And when things explode or interact with each other, usually you don't see that spherical geometry. But astronomers are baffled by a suspicious, perfectly round sphere in our galaxy. A near perfect circle in a messy universe is a special find. So how does a spherical object lurking in our galaxy, get so perfectly round, and they cannot explain it? These are some of the notes and combination of an object called teleus, the word in Greek for perfect. This object is known as a supernova remnant, and SNR, a glowing cloud of hot gases and other material left behind after a massive star dies in a powerful explosion called a supernova. And it's definitely earns its nickname. According to astronomical findings, this is a publication of the Astronomical Society of Australia. This is one of the most circular galactic supernova remnants ever found. The shape indicates Tellius has remained relatively untouched by its environment, says the West Sydney University astronomer in an essay written for his colleagues this year. This presents us with an opportunity to make inferences about initial supernova explosions, providing rare insight into one of the most energetic events in the universe. So they believe that this was a rare type of supernova explosion happening only once every 500 years in the Milky Way, very rare. When a smaller but far denser white dwarf siphons enough matter from its companion star, whose orbit has crept too close, the stolen material detonates in an epic thermonuclear explosion that obliterates both stars. For something so symmetrical, there we go. For something so symmetrical to emerge out of an event so violent is unusual, to put it mildly. Now, I'm not even sure how far away this object is. They say it's either 7,000 light years away or 25,000 light years away. That's a factor of 3. The uncertainty surrounding its distance means its age and size are hard to pin down, too. It's either less than 1,000 years old or maybe over 10,000 years old. Or they think it's 46 light years across or 157 light years across. So this is science in the flux and on the fly, and astronomers doing things to pin down these things. And probably within a year, they'll figure out exactly how far away it is. That's some other measurements by other telescopes and orbiting laboratories around the Earth, and even now 2 million miles away with the Webb telescope there. So these are the type of things that is the raw science of astrophysics, understanding the molecules from an atomic size reacting on a universal scale. And there we have something that they don't expect, a very spherical star that exploded. Usually there's stars that fly by over eons of time that can pull that matter out, and other factors can happen. Because let me point out that the universe is not empty, so to speak. It's not a void of empty things going on. There's constantly like motes that you see in the atmosphere. Here in front of you, you might see a dust mote floating if the sunlight's just right. Think of that, all those type of things all over the universe that could bump into each other. Well, on the home stretch here, talking about my favorite planet, Mars, next to Pluto, and there is Perseverance on Mars over 5 years now, 4.5 years, I believe. Of course, we've got Curiosity on the other side of Mars. It's been operating for 12 years. 2 rovers the size of your SUV parked in your driveway or your neighbor's. And again, both of them are exploring areas that looked like areas that were a lake on Mars. This particular area called Jezero Crater looks like a delta, like the Mississippi Delta going out into New Orleans, all dried up. And look at the layers on the mini mountain behind there, showing you the only thing that causes that is sedimentary rock from water. And we'd love to dig into there and see if there's any, shells or anything in there. But they haven't found anything digging around like that on the surface of Mars. After all, that's very tenuous atmosphere, though it supports dust devils and haze in its atmosphere. It's 1/10 the Earth's atmosphere. Think about where an airplane flies. That's the atmosphere where you couldn't breathe it and all. So, but the discovery there is the Crocodilian rocks formed before this Jezero crater was created during Mars' early geologic period. The Nochian era is where this rover is headed right now. Perseverance has entered a new region on Mars, which may contain some of the red planet's oldest and most interesting rocks. Perseverance landed inside this 28-mile crater in February 2021, so it's into its fourth year, on a mission to search for past signs of Mars life and collect dozens of samples for future return to Earth. And, well, that ain't going to happen. The samples have been collected, but we don't have the spacecraft even on the drawing board to bring them back. The car-sized rover's covered a lot of ground in the past 4 years and has now reached yet another new spot, a plateau of rocky crops, and that's shown here. It's leaving Witch Hazel Hill and headed to your left there. After coming from the right, you see the pathway there. What a bold maneuver to go through this pass. It literally went through a mountain pass as it's climbing higher and higher up Jezero Crater. On the right-hand side where you see the sand dunes, and that's what they are, that's over 1,000 feet lower than where it's at right now. But it's in the rocky outcrops that the mission team calls Crocodilian, after a mountain range on Prins Karls Forland Island in Norway. And Crocodilian means crocodile in Norwegian. So this area here to the left is that darkish area, covers about 73 acres, is a boundary of sorts between the ancient rocks of Jezero Crater's rim and the plains beyond. Earlier work suggests that it may have clay materials, and anywhere there's clay, there's a presence of liquid water. If Perseverance finds more such minerals throughout Crocodilian, it would suggest that the area may have been habitable long ago. An intriguing thought given the age of the rocks. These rocks were created before this crater on the right was created, so it's gone almost to the rim, up to the central peak. If we find a potential biosignature here, it would most likely be from an entirely different and much earlier epoch of Mars evolution than the one we found last year in the crater at Sheyev's Falls. All right. Epoch means certain distinct era where things happened. The Earth is up into the different epochs where there was no life, and I don't have my epochs off the top of my head. Precambrian is the one. Then you have the Cambrian. Then you got the other ones that sort of give a signature that the Earth had changed and was more habitable life, so more life evolved on there. But this is way before signs of possible life were found inside the crater. That would mean that life was on Mars, in the first billion years of its history there. So love these shots of Mars like that. And there is the tracks on the left on a navigation camera of Percy, looking back to the right there. You see the dot where it's at. It's coming from Witch Hazel Hill. And the team at Jet Propulsion Lab running moving these rovers get the name, the features after things they enjoy. By the way, to rove on Mars is Marty is not very fast. The Perseverance roves at it can go about a football. I think I'm trying to think about 10 feet an hour, something like that. It goes more than twice as fast as Curiosity does, though. A good day's drive for Curiosity would be about 300 feet, an 8-hour crawling. So you can imagine you can almost barely see the wheels turn. Why? Because they don't want to run into something. They're trying to remotely control this spacecraft with a 20-minute delay between the Earth and the Mars surface. So, it's a 40-minute time frame to say, hey, turn to the left, and don't roll off the cliff. And Marty, you better believe some of your artificial intelligence on your cars that signal that there's somebody in your blind spot. That has all been revolutionized by these rovers on Mars and the generation of Opportunity and Spirit before them. So great to think about. Your car having some of its high-tech inventions coming from the rovers on Mars. Well, finally, the furthest object in human history we can talk about, Voyager 1. Voyager 1 is about 15 billion with a B miles away from the Earth, where it was launched in 1977. Voyager 1 and its duplicate Voyager 2. Voyager 2 is 13 billion miles away. It took a little different route, but they both traveled further than any human-made objects in history. Well, against all odds, NASA engineers brought back to life a set of Voyager 1's thrusters thought to be dead since 2004, 21 years ago. With the spacecraft now in deep interstellar space, the fix was driven by growing concerns that its currently used thrusters might soon fail. Racing against time before a long communications blackout caused by you down there in Australia, Cliff Watson, the team made a daring and intricate attempt to restore the dormant thruster system that they gave up on 20 years ago. Their creative theory paid off, turning a nearly forgotten system into a mission-saving backup just in time. Well, it's a remarkable engineering feat that the Jet Propulsion Lab nerds there in Southern California reactivated these thrusters 15 billion miles away. They were considered out of commission. It took a mix of clever thinking and some risk, but the team wanted a reliable backup. That's because the main thrusters currently in use are showing signs of clogging from residue, which could stop them from working as soon as this fall. Well, the timing was critical because the Earth-based antenna responsible for sending commands to Voyager and its twin, Voyager 2, would go offline for several months of scheduled upgrades. All right. That is the Deep Space Station antenna in Canberra, Australia. It's 230 feet wide and part of NASA's Deep Space Network. And it will be offline for most of the time with brief periods of operation in August and December as it's being upgraded and restored. There are other 3 deep space networks in Goldstone, California, and Madrid, Spain, to ensure constant contact as the Earth rotates. But the deep space dish in Canberra, Australia, is the only dish with enough signal power to send commands to the Voyagers. And at 15 billion miles away, I think those commands take about 3 hours to get there and 3 hours back. So it's incredible. We're not receiving photographs. There's not enough light to see anything. But they do have 3 or 4 experiments online. They have realized that we've left the gravitational influence of the sun, the only 2 objects to ever do that. And they're beyond what we call the heliopause, which is sort of a big atmosphere around the solar system created by the outgassing of our star. That after all, that stuff is going to keep going and going and until it just sort of dissipates out there. So these iconic spacecraft will be coming up on their 50th anniversary in just 2 short years. So we hope that they are still viable. And Voyager 2 is also it's in pretty good shape considering. Now Voyager 2 went by Jupiter and Saturn just like Voyager 1 did, but instead Voyager 1 went by the planet Titan, did a left turn at Saturn and went by Titan because we thought Titan would be so interesting, and we were shocked to find it was in a cloud of gases. The atmosphere is so thick we couldn't see the surface. So had they do it over again, they wouldn't have gone by Titan. They would have gone by Uranus and Neptune like Voyager 2 did, our only close-up views of that. So there you have it, a look at space history, some space news being made around our our world, our planet, and so forth. I appreciate Dean, uh, uh, Dave Stange watching with Mia and Nick. Jessie, my daughter's watching. She's heard Daddy talk like this a lot before. Thank you for watching RG Jubilee, Robert Law, Tom Usiak, Michael Bruno, Doug Forrest, Carlton Bailey, Mitch Rothman, Dean Babcock, Mark Usiak, Elena, Steve Jokums, and Chris Callie watching today. And now you got some space news that you didn't know before. Marty, you got a question or a comment before we sign off?
Yeah, matter of fact, Amy Collins is watching also. But we have a
Who?
comment. Amy Collins.
Oh, thank you, Amy.
And a comment from Steve Oakham. Voyager 1 is approximately 22.7 light hours away from Earth, not 3.
Okay, 22.7 light hours away from Earth, not 3. Thank you. I was pulling that off the top of my head. And that means with an optical speed of light going out there. So it takes over 2 days to get a signal there and back to confirmed on that. Thank you, Steve, for adding that fact to our factual story today. Hope you enjoyed that. And tomorrow's Friday, and we've got the weekend of Memorial Day weekend, my favorite holiday weekend, because all the happiness and all the springtime up here and all the racing going on, and because my grandpa was in the first 2 Indy 500s that they'll be racing Sunday morning. So we'll do a show tomorrow of some, maybe a little bit of astronomy, maybe some space update. How about who's in space, Marty? We haven't caught up with who's up in space for a while. So glad that you've joined this little social hour or so about space in our community here. Thank you for being part of our community. It's important to the American Space Museum that all of you are supporting us in this way. So we can't thank you enough. And of course, tell your friends to like, share, love, do whatever. Sit them down and watch them, like little Mia there, learning her planets here on Stay Curious. Hi there, Mia and Nick and your grandpa up there. And next time you hear that meteor going by there, an asteroid, get in the basement so that you know you're safe there. So anyway, some interesting news today, I thought. Thank you for letting me share that. We'll do the same tomorrow. Until then, I'm Mark Marquette, thanking Marty Winkle for a great job as usual, and thanking you for watching as we thoroughly enjoy our time together as we bridge the space between us.